I wanted to do a video covering the different parts of the Catholic Mass, but as I was putting one together, it occurred to me that I probably needed to provide a precursor video to the Catholic Mass video, one that will provide very basic information on the different parts of the church, the interior as well as the exterior. So in this video, I'll be discussing church elements. Every Catholic church makes up a parish. Several parishes together can make up a diocese. The word diocese dates back all the way to the early Roman Empire when certain governors were in charge of a certain district. The district was called a diocese. Today, the Catholic Church puts bishops in charge of dioceses. These are areas consisting of several parishes. The bishop's home church will be called the cathedral. So there will be one cathedral per diocese. Right now there's 194 dioceses in the United States, which means there's most likely 194 cathedrals. However, that number can get skewed when we start talking about diocese versus archdiocese. And one of the many questions people have is, what is the difference between a diocese and an archdiocese, or a bishop and an archbishop? The difference comes from growth. Let's say, for example, a certain diocese is having a large section in their region growing exponentially, and more churches or more parishes need to be built. This section may break off into its own diocese. However, the old diocese that it came from will be referred to as the archdiocese, and its region is not changed. The new diocese just falls underneath it. Now, that's a tricky word when I say falls underneath it, because the two bishops, the new bishop and the archbishop, are actually on the same level as far as authority is concerned. Now, going into the Bible, I'll just give you an example of the bishop and his diocese. Most historians and scholars agree that John, the gospel writer, as well as the author of Revelation, was writing to his parishes in Ephesus, in Smyrna, in Philadelphia, in the book of Revelation. He wrote to those 7 churches, and most people agree that he was the bishop of Ephesus writing to his particular parishes in the diocese that fell under him. Moving on, all Catholic churches are named after saints. I'll put a little asterisk next to that because there are certain words that are allowed, such as Trinity, Jesus Christ, Mary, God, for churches to be named after. But the vast majority are named after saints. The neat part about this is if you're ever traveling in an area that you're not sure where the Catholic Church is, all you have to do is look for the one that's named after a saint, because non-Catholics do not name their churches after saints. So if you're ever in an area, look for, the St. Joan of Arc or St. Vincent de Paul. It's a safe bet that that church is Catholic. Prior to the 1960s, or prior to Vatican II, Catholic churches were built east to west, with the altar on the east side of the church. That belief came from Jesus returning. Jesus would come like the rising sun. He would come from the east. After 1965, or after Vatican II, churches were allowed to face any direction. In addition to that, the priest, prior to Vatican II, would face east. They are now allowed to face the congregation or the audience. Inside the church, the first room or area you will find will be the vestibule, and that is the assembly area before worship. Going into the church, the area where the congregation will sit is called the nave. Latin for boat, like navy. And this is the area where the congregation sits as if we are all in the boat together when Jesus walked on water. In the front of the church, usually raised by 1 to 3 steps or a raised dais, is the sanctuary where the altar rests. Directly behind the altar is the tabernacle. That is where the real presence of Jesus, the Eucharist, is placed. Little tidbit of information: when we enter the church and we genuflect, or we go down on one knee to the altar, it's actually the tabernacle that we are giving our homage or reverence for. It is not the altar or the sanctuary. It's actually the presence of Jesus. If the presence of Jesus is in the tabernacle, there sometimes is a light on top of the tabernacle which signifies that the real presence of Jesus is inside. But there are times when that light is off and the real presence of Jesus is not there. They call that light of the presence. Going back to the altar, many Catholic churches will have reliquaries, which are containers containing relics or ashes of the saints, and they're placed in the altar. This goes back to early Christianity, when the masses were being performed in, say, the Roman catacombs, and they were performing masses around relics or around the martyrs of the early Christian martyrs. They would gather around these relics as they said their prayers and practiced Eucharist. You can also see this in the book of Revelation, Revelation chapter 6, verse 9, when it talks about the saints or the blood of the saints being under the altar. The last part is the lectern, which is the podium where the word of God is spoken to the assembly. And a neat little addition that I'll give to you regarding the word of God being spoken to the people from the lectern is, if you were to attend Mass every single day, including Sundays, for 3 years straight, you would hear the entirety of the Bible. The entire Bible revolves around a 3-year cycle in the Catholic Mass. Well, that's all I got for now. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a little bit about the Catholic Church. Thanks for watching.